Okay, listen, thank you all for coming and for your interest in copper. I am here to present my project. I'm not going to take much of your time. You're going to see a handout. Some of you were able to get a copy. If you didn't get a copy and you want one, I've got extra business cards, so see me after. I'm kind of an environmental freak. I don't like to print more than I've often had to throw them away, and I don't like that, so I didn't print as many. Okay, what the handout is just a demonstration of my project, and all of you are important to this project. And maybe by the time I'm done, you'll understand why. This is called the Copper Artifact Master Database, CAMD for short. And what it is it's a compilation of all copper artifacts, an attempt at getting as many as I can, of copper artifacts found in the Americas. So I'm talking about Canada all the way down to South America, and I'm trying to compile all of them. Now, it's not going to happen, right? But it's an attempt. And right now, the database is at nearly 51,000 pieces. So it's an ongoing project. I started about 4 years ago. In fact, let me tell you about how I got into this. In 2007, I became a volunteer at the Copper Culture State Park, the Oconto Archaic Copper Museum, we call it, which is known as the oldest copper burial cemetery in the nation. And even though the datings have been disputed, there are quite a few people who will tell you that copper tooling probably goes back further than that. The reason, when I left there, I took my love of copper with me, and I had a newsletter already that I was giving members of the Copper Culture Historical Association. So I decided to keep going with the newsletter and keep researching copper because I thought it was fascinating. And you're going to see up here I have a binder. This green one right here. It has all my newsletters in it from the beginning. It's in its 5th year now. This copper newsletter is free to anyone who wants to subscribe. Okay, I have about 94 on my list right now. And so what I do in the newsletter is I just disseminate some of the things I'm finding out. But what I do is I go to museums and collectors all around the country and wherever I can find them, and I ask them to share their database for this project. Because what it is it's for all of us. This database, what do you think the copper industry looks like if all of these copper artifacts are dispersed in all of these collections and in museum basements and in storage? And how are we ever going to see what the industry really looked like? How are we ever going to understand the people that created these? But I really got into this because I was interested in the trade network of the people who were here pre-contact. So you're going to see these maps here. These maps here I created for different presentations and things, but they show the rivers and how important the rivers, we all know this, right? We know how important the rivers were to them. That's how they traveled. So I like to look at, with this copper database, where things traveled. Where can we find this that is also showing up over here? What time period might this have been created in? And this really can open up our research. And I will get this published so that everybody can access it. I was thinking about a book, but then I thought, you know what? Most of you would probably say, well, I'm only interested in one county or one state. Why would you buy a whole book? So I was thinking of putting it on the website and making sections of it available to whoever wanted them. So I'm still not quite sure how to make it available yet, but as you can imagine, I will have to charge a modest fee because I've been doing this all independent, all on my own dollar. I have gotten no money for this except for a few talks I've given. So as any writer would, you have to charge for what you do. The database, your handout, shows you how I organize the material. Now this is just Houghton County. This is not everything in Houghton County, okay? My Houghton County database, I think I wrote it down here. My Houghton County database, let's see.
Would you like to show it?
Oh yeah, I suppose that's distracting, huh? Okay, where do I have this written down? Houghton County, I have, I don't see it on here now. Okay, Keweenaw County, I wrote that one down. Keweenaw County has a total of 572 artifacts from 7 sources, just to give you another example. If we break up those sources up, private collectors, as one of the 7, is another 5 people. So you've got a total of 11 sources in Keweenaw County. Now, I've only gotten started in Michigan. I've got a lot more to do in Michigan. I really do. I tend to focus on states when I have something really interesting going on. Otherwise, I ask museums all over the country, and I send them emails, or I go there in person or something, you know. I'm working directly with Oshkosh. I go to their database and I work with them. I've just been to New London, went through their database, their artifacts. And what I do is I give them a copy of their database. If you were a collector and you shared your database with me, I will organize it in this fashion for you and give it back to you so that you'll see it by county and by what it is and all of that. That's what I give you back in return for sharing with me. Plus the fact that this is going to be disseminated, this is going to show us more of what the copper artifacts, the industry look like around the world. For instance, until I started doing South America, I didn't realize that the Great Lakes area really was first as far as copper tooling went. Everybody talks about the Mexican cultures being first in everything. No, the Mexicans were last in tooling copper. We were first up here around the Great Lakes. Illinois might have been first, actually. I've talked to Jack Steinbring on that one. But, and of course it all depends on we find something in the future, right? That could change everything. But then South America actually started tooling in copper about 2000 BC. And don't hold me to these dates. I'm going from memory, and that's not real good. But it's written down. Mexico, as a latecomer, didn't really start tooling in copper till like 600 CE. And South America started smelting copper like around 500 BCE. And Mexico then started smelting copper around 900 CE. It never really came up to us in the United States or Canada, except one little area in New Mexico might have gotten started. I'm still on a trail of that one. So really, basically, that's what I've got. I've got, in South America, I've got a total of 2,595 pieces compared to Mexico of 2,537. But I started Mexico before I did South America. South America is an enormous copper area compared to Central America, which is 645. And the Maya really didn't use copper, from what I can tell. At least not in their classic period. In the late classic, post-classic, I think they were starting to get into it. So, I really didn't want to take up too much of your time. You're going to notice on the handout, I have it located by county. That's the most important thing. If you can't tell where it's found, it really takes away a lot of its value if we don't know where it was found. What are we going to tell about that? Of course, the age is wonderful too, and that's why archaeologists want you to find the context of your artifacts. And then I have the description of the artifact, or the name, what the artifact is, and then the description, how many, the source. Now the source is who has that artifact, where is that artifact? And sometimes I have a magazine or a book that I got it out of. Oftentimes that's a duplicate, and I might actually find where the artifact is, and that's why those are often marked as potential duplicates. And I do use Whitree's typology because when we can abbreviate the description of it into a classification, then it's easier to search. Like say I want to find all the ILs, then I don't have to say, okay, what did I call these again? That makes it the easiest way to search on, I want to find all the ILs and where they were found so I can map them. And I've done that kind of work too. And again, you'll see some of that in my newsletter. So really, that's basically all I wanted to tell you guys. I figure you might have more questions than I have answers, but basically, I have to say that, and I'm anticipating this question, how do you know you're accurate? How do you know your database is accurate? Well, it's as accurate, I think, as anybody could make it, because I'm very diligent and I'm a perfectionist. I don't like making mistakes. I don't like finding mistakes. When I find them, as soon as I find them, I correct them. I do go through them and on occasion, and I verify and I check. And if something doesn't look right, then I go back to the source I got it from. And so really, I don't like to guess. And one of the wonderful things about doing this is how museums are benefiting. I think museums are the most cooperative because they see the value of knowing how to name these things. I mean, I can go into a museum collection and they'll call it a copper celt. Well, what's a copper celt? That's a shape. It's not a tool. It's either an axe. It could be an axe. It could be an adze. It could be a wedge. It could be a ritual item. I mean, and the weight and the size, that makes all the difference. So that's one of the things I'm looking at doing, is making everything standardized so we know exactly what we've got in these databases, and that's what's going to be reflected in here. So what I need you to do is be willing to share with me. If you have a database, if you have copper, even if it's just one piece, get it in the database. I don't reveal names. You'll notice that the confidential material is not here. I will not release the confidential material. If you're a private collector, you don't want your name released, it won't be released because you'll be just listed as private collector. And I do keep the confidential material for myself because I like to explore this. I like to explore where these things were found and if they were on a river or in a burial or that kind of thing. Eventually, the confidential material could be released depending on the circumstance. I would have to, look at that very closely. If anybody asked me for the confidential, I'd have to find out why they wanted it and what they were going to do with it, that kind of thing. So, but the confidential is not for publication. And I do put some pictures in my newsletter, and I'm careful to tell them, please do not share these pictures. This is only for the newsletter use. I get no money for sharing these pictures, and I don't want to see anybody else illegally using a picture and getting money out of it. So, anybody have any questions? That's really all I have to say. Yes. Well, I'm gonna be really honest with you. The chances of anyone getting confidential material is if they're professional, like an archaeologist or a museum head. Those are probably the only ones that will get it. Like I said, you'd have to have a real compelling, and I can't be bought, I'm sorry. I have to tell you that I was kind of raised on the curatorship at the O'Connell Museum and learning a lot about NAGPRA and all of that. So I'm not a professional, I'm a historian. I got a master's in history.